at 8:38 with a very personal look at the life of one of the best-known film critics of our time. Roger Ebert is out with a new autobiography.
There is a movie you have seen. Maybe you caught it on cable at midnight, or a cousin put it on during a family gathering, or you stumbled onto it and could not stop watching. You laughed, you quoted it for weeks, maybe years, and you thought you knew it. You thought it was just a loud, ridiculous, wonderfully over-the-top 90s military comedy with Damon Wayans screaming at children. But here is the thing, you did not know it, because the real story of Major Payne, the one happening behind the camera, the one the cast tried to quietly bury, the one that explains why the movie feels the way it feels, is nothing like what you watched on screen. The secrets hidden inside the production of this 1995 comedy are stranger, darker, and more fascinating than anything Major Payne ever barked at those cadets. We are going to go through 11 of them today. Stay with me all the way to number 11, because the last one will completely change how you see this movie, and not in the way you expect. The bones were stolen from 1955.
Major Payne reporting for duty, sir.
Let's start with the foundation, because most fans never stop to ask the obvious question. Where did this movie actually come from? Major Payne looks like a product of its time. A high-energy black comedy star, a military fish-out-of-water premise, big reactions, loud jokes, 90s energy baked into every single scene. Everything about it screams 1995. So most people assume it was invented for that moment, dropped into theaters as part of that era's conveyor belt of action comedies. That assumption is completely wrong. The real skeleton of Major Payne is 40 years older than the movie itself. The foundation was laid in 1955 with a film called The Private War of Major Benson, starring Charlton Heston. Think about that for a second. The same year that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, a movie studio was already putting a rigid career soldier into a military school full of boys, watching the clash and letting the officers slowly soften. The basic architecture was already locked in back then. The hard-nosed military man clashes with institutional authority. He gets reassigned somewhere he does not want to be. He has to command a group of undisciplined boys who have no interest in being commanded. And slowly, so slowly you barely notice it, something in him begins to open up. The boys change. He changes. Even a romance begins to form around the edges of all that military rigidity. Now here is where the 1995 remake made its most important decision. In the original, the friction point is a white mother superior at a Catholic school. That relationship is about discipline meeting tradition. Two different institutions bumping against each other. The remake replaced that entirely. Enter Emily Washburn, played by Karen Parsons, and the whole emotional engine of the movie changes. Now the clash is not institution versus institution. It is Payne's brutal, dehumanizing control colliding with Emily's belief that children need gentleness, understanding, and space to grow. It becomes personal. It becomes a genuine argument about what it means to raise a child, to lead human beings, to care for people you are responsible for. That shift turned a mild relic of the 1950s into something that could breathe in 1995. The bones came from a different era entirely. The attitude and the heart had to be built fresh. The man who almost wore the uniform. Now that you know where the story came from, let's talk about the man who almost told it. Because here is something the trailers never told you. Before Damon Wayans ever put on that uniform, before he perfected that stiff-spined walk and that clipped mechanical voice,
"Get down! Give me $25."
the role of Major Payne was heading somewhere else entirely. The first name attached to the project was Martin Lawrence. Let that land for a moment. Think about what Martin Lawrence in the mid-1990s looked like. His sitcom was a cultural event. His stand-up was fast, chaotic, unpredictable, and electric.
Remember a couple of years ago, Modi was the shit. How you like me now?
Martin Lawrence as Major Payne would have been a completely different kind of movie. The character would have been looser, more explosive, more reactive, less like a man built out of military precision, and more like a man barely keeping his own madness contained. Think of what that energy would have done in a classroom full of kids. Think of the kind of comedy that would have ignited. And then it didn't happen, because Bad Boys came along, and that took priority. Martin Lawrence had a bigger opportunity in front of him, and he took it, which means the entire shape of Major Payne had to be renegotiated from scratch. Ask yourself this: When was the last time a single casting switch completely changed the DNA of a movie? Because that is exactly what happened when Damon Wayans stepped in. Wayans had speed too. You cannot survive in living color without speed. But the way he used it was fundamentally different. His comedy had structure. It had control. It had this quality of someone who is absolutely committed to a choice, locked into it, refusing to deviate. And once he stepped into the Major Payne role, the character stopped being a volatile wild card and started being something much more specific.
You know, from doing stand-up for 10 years, I have like this built-in audience in my head. I have a laugh meter.
A man who has been trained to eliminate waste and who genuinely cannot understand why the rest of the world operates differently. That precision is what makes the character work. That precision is also what made the comedy land differently than it would have with Lawrence. Same premise, completely different commander. The preparation no one talks about. Here is something people underestimate about this performance. Damon Wayans did not walk onto the set of Major Payne and start improvising military behavior. He built it from the ground up, deliberately and methodically, like Major Payne himself would have wanted. Wayans spent weeks doing genuine drill instructor preparation before filming began. Not actor preparation, drill instructor preparation. He studied posture. He studied how a military body moves through space, the way it takes ownership of a room without asking permission, the way it occupies ground. He studied how a real Marine issues commands, not just the words, but the timing, the rhythm, the pressure. By the time cameras were rolling, the character had stopped feeling like a comedy bit and started moving like someone genuinely shaped by decades of military service. But here is where it gets interesting. Wayans understood something else too. Real drill instructors are not robots. They do not just repeat the same scripts over and over. They read the room. They pressure people in the moment. They improvise their intimidation based on who is standing in front of them. And Wayans already had that skill from years of sketch comedy and stand-up. He knew how to react in real time, how to find the unexpected angle in a live situation. So once the military structure was locked in, he could play inside it. The discipline was real, but the intimidation kept mutating. Every scene has this quality of genuine unpredictability sitting underneath the rigid surface. You believe the man is a machine, but you never quite know what the machine is going to do next. And then he took it home. According to Damon Wayans Jr., his father did not leave Major Payne on the set when filming ended for the day. He carried that drill sergeant frequency home with him, still in the mode, still operating at that pressure. By his son's joking account, Wayans Sr. had him doing push-ups at home, and it turned him into the most physically fit 8-year-old in the neighborhood. When a performance follows you home so completely that your own child can describe it in detail, that is not someone doing a voice. That is someone who built a character from the inside out. The plan that backfired immediately. Now here is where the story gets genuinely funny, and not in the way anyone planned. Think about what the film needed when it came to the child actors. It needed those kids to react to Major Payne with real unease, real nervousness, real wide-eyed uncertainty about what this man might do next. The best way to get that on screen, or so the thinking went, was to make sure the kids felt at least some version of it in real life. So the plan was this: keep Damon Wayans in character around the child actors between takes. Maintain some distance. Stay in that hard, intimidating drill sergeant energy even when the cameras were not rolling. Let the discomfort seep into the performances organically. On paper, that is actually a reasonable production strategy. Keep the dynamic alive. Keep the tension authentic. The problem? The kids knew exactly who Damon Wayans was. These were not blank slate child actors who saw a scary military man. These were kids from the mid-1990s who grew up watching In Living Color. They did not see Major Payne when Damon Wayans walked on set. They saw the guy from the sketch comedy show they quoted at school. More specifically, they wanted one thing and one thing only. They wanted Homie the Clown. The request started immediately. The voice, the routine, the whole bit. Instead of shrinking back from Wayans, the kids kept gravitating toward him, asking him to do the thing. The intimidation strategy dissolved in real time, because you cannot maintain drill sergeant distance from a group of children who are begging you to do a comedy character. Wayans eventually stopped trying to hold the distance and started bonding with them instead. And once that happened, something loosened across the entire production. The kids relaxed. The energy shifted. The dynamic between the actor and his young co-stars stopped being a calculated tension and started being something more genuine. And here is the part that matters. That loose, genuine dynamic actually served the movie better than the original plan would have. Major Payne was never a film that needed children to be genuinely terrified. It needed them to be rattled by him, amused by him, confused by him, and slowly drawn to him. The organic bond that developed off-camera gave the on-camera relationship exactly that texture. The kids wanted Homie the Clown. They accidentally gave the movie its soul. The rule that cost one kid the role. Here is a question you have probably never asked. What did it actually cost to be one of Major Payne's cadets? You see the boys on screen, shaved heads and all, and the transformation reads as a quick visual joke. Payne takes over, out come the Clippers, and suddenly these loud individual kids look like a squad. It lands in about 30 seconds of screen time and moves on. But behind that 30-second moment was a rule so firm it eliminated at least one actor before filming even started. Damon Wayans later confirmed it directly. The boys playing Payne's cadets could only be cast if they agreed up front to shave their heads completely, not partially, not with a cap or a wig as a workaround, completely bald. And the agreement had to come with full parental sign-off. If a parent or a child hesitated on this point, they were not in the movie. For a child actor, that is not a small ask. An adult can shave their head for a role and let the professional decision carry the personal cost. A child walking around with a shaved head goes to school like that, goes to birthday parties like that, shows up in every photograph and family gathering for months while the hair grows back. A joke that plays on screen for 30 seconds follows the child home for most of a year. And yet the production did not bend on the rule. According to Wayans, at least one well-known child actor got close to the role, close enough that the opportunity was real, and then walked away once the shaved head requirement became unavoidable. The production simply replaced him with someone willing to do it. Stephen Martini, who played Alex Stone, addressed it later with the kind of wry honesty that comes from time and distance. He noted that hate might be too strong a word, but that first day with the Clippers was not exactly a highlight of his childhood. Next time you watch that hair-shaving scene and laugh at how quickly it lands, remember what it cost the kids who stayed. The campus that already had a history. Madison Preparatory School, the fictional military academy at the center of the film, looks exactly the way a movie would design it if it were inventing a military school from scratch. Old stone buildings, wide, orderly grounds, the kind of institutional architecture that communicates authority without saying a word. It feels like set design doing exactly what set design is supposed to do, except it was not a set, it was a real place. The production filmed at Miller School of Albemarle, a boarding school that was founded in 1878. That campus was already over 100 years old before Damon Wayans ever stepped onto it. The age in the stone was not manufactured by a production designer. It was real. Every bit of gravity and history that the location brings to the screen was already there, already accumulated, already embedded in the architecture before the film crew showed up. But the location history gets even stranger. Miller School of Albemarle had already been used in a film before Major Payne arrived. A few years earlier, the same campus appeared in Toy Soldiers, a thriller about a private school taken hostage by a terrorist organization. The school had already played a battlefield, a different kind of war, a different kind of crisis, but the same grounds, the same buildings, the same stone corridors. Think about that sequence. A school that has existed since 1878 first plays a hostage zone in a thriller, and then, a few years later, plays a military school being systematically dismantled and rebuilt by Damon Wayans yelling at children. Same campus, two completely different kinds of chaos. Some locations just attract a certain kind of story. The Doctor Who almost wasn't William Hickey. Major Payne's funniest supporting character might be Dr. Phillips, the school's administrator who exists in a permanent state of baffled detachment from reality. He wanders through scenes noticing butterflies while crises unfold around him. He responds to catastrophe with the energy of someone who has just discovered a scheduling conflict. He is, in the most precise possible way, the wrong man for every situation he finds himself in. The role was originally written with Leslie Nielsen in mind. If you know Nielsen's work, Airplane, the Naked Gun series, Police Squad, you understand immediately why that makes sense on paper. Nielsen had built an entire career out of playing authority figures who project complete confidence while everything around them falls apart. He had that quality of absolute deadpan certainty that made the comedy work at the highest level. As Dr. Phillips, he probably would have played the obliviousness with that Nielsen signature. A man who is not confused, he simply lives in a slightly different version of reality than everyone else. But Nielsen did not take the role. Director Nick Castle went in a completely different direction. He cast William Hickey, largely because of how much he had loved Hickey's performance in Christmas Vacation. And from the moment Hickey took the role, Dr. Phillips changed shape entirely. Where Nielsen would have played him as sturdy, Hickey played him as fragile. Where Nielsen would have been deadpan, Hickey was genuinely adrift. A frail, slightly trembling oddball who seems perpetually half a second behind the world everyone else is living in. You watch Hickey's version of Phillips, and you get the sense that if Payne raised his voice just a fraction higher, the man might simply drift away like a leaf. Nielsen would have made Dr. Phillips funny in a big, recognizable, comfortable way. Hickey made him funny in a way that still feels strange and slightly unsettling. That strangeness gives the character a texture you cannot manufacture. It is a specific kind of off-center that you either have or you don't. The role almost went one direction. It went a much weirder one. The movie is better for it. The grenade scene that broke two rules at once. There is a moment in Major Payne where he yanks a grenade pin with his teeth, and it lands perfectly. The intimidation is immediate. The comedy of his complete casual confidence with a live explosive is immediate. It reads as exactly the kind of moment the movie needed to establish that this man is operating on a level of danger the rest of the world cannot access. But the scene is built on two separate lies, running simultaneously. The first one is physical. In real life, a grenade pin is not a loose little ring waiting to slide out the moment a tough guy bites it. It is designed specifically to not come loose by accident. Pulling one requires genuine force. Trying to do it with your teeth would be far more likely to damage dental work than to successfully arm anything. The whole visual is a fantasy. The second lie is the grenade itself. If you look closely at the grenade in the scene, the top is painted blue. In military designation, blue means training grenade, an inert device used for drills and practice. Even the object in Payne's hand was never capable of causing harm. The scene is performing danger, not containing it, so the move would not work in real life, and the grenade was not a real threat anyway. Two layers of fiction stacked on top of each other, creating one completely convincing moment of screen intimidation. But realism was never the point of that beat. The point was to make Major Payne feel like a man who exists outside the normal boundaries of human caution, a man who treats a live explosive the way most people treat a bottle cap. The scene does that job completely, even though everything about it is wrong. Sometimes the most effective movie moments are the ones built entirely on bluff, the faces that were hiding in plain sight. When you watch Major Payne now, you are watching something the original 1995 audience could not have seen. A movie that was quietly incubating future careers inside its chaos. The clearest example is Chris Owen. He plays Cadet Uyghur, the nervous, twitchy cadet who vibrates on his own specific frequency of social anxiety. Even in this film, the quality is unmistakable. The awkward energy, the specific kind of visible discomfort in his own skin, the sense that this character is always slightly out of sync with the world around him. A few years after Major Payne, that exact quality would make Owen instantly recognizable to an entire generation as Sherman in American Pie. But there is a more remarkable early appearance hidden in the same film. Orlando Brown was 7 years old when he played Tiger, the youngest and smallest member of Payne's squad, 7 years old. That makes Tiger not just the youngest character in the story. It makes Orlando Brown genuinely the youngest person on the set in the most meaningful sense, and the production was not unaware of that. For certain scenes, Wayans maintained that intimidating Payne energy between takes specifically to keep Brown's reactions wide-eyed and unsettled in a way the camera could catch. The The wide-eyed discomfort you see on screen from Tiger was at least partially real, the genuine response of a 7-year-old to an adult performing sustained intensity in close proximity. That small role, in a film that most people dismissed as a noisy formula comedy, was the beginning of a career that would make Orlando Brown a familiar face across early 2000s television. In 1995, they looked like background noise in someone else's movie. Looking back now, the whole thing starts to feel like an accidental early showcase, a film that did not know it was launching careers at the same time it was launching jokes. The movie that won the rerun instead of The Weekend. When Major Payne opened in March 1995, the reviews were not kind. Critics saw a loud, crude formula remake and responded accordingly. The phrase "one-note screamer" circulated. The 1955 original was noted unfavorably as something the remake had not improved on. There was one significant exception. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars and specifically praised Damon Wayans for doing something far more difficult than the film's packaging suggested, turning Major Payne into a genuine comic character instead of a screaming cartoon. Ebert understood what a lot of critics missed, that the specificity of Wayans' physicality, the precision of the performance, was doing real work underneath all that noise. The film made about $30 million during its theatrical run, not a blockbuster, not a failure either. Somewhere in the territory of solid mid-range business for that era, for that kind of movie, and then it left theaters and started its real life. VHS first, then DVD, then cable, always cable. The film became one of those titles you caught accidentally at 2 a.m. on a channel you were not even looking for, and you stayed with it because you kept expecting it to end, and it kept not ending in a way that made you want to leave. Each stop along the way added new people to the audience, not a wave, a drip. A slow, steady accumulation of people who found the movie, claimed it, quoted it, and then passed it to someone else. The German audience found it even without a traditional theatrical release. Through home video and constant television airings, the film built a genuine cult following in a country where it was never even properly opened. That kind of international reach does not happen because a movie opened big. It happens because a movie keeps showing up until people start to feel like it has always existed. Decades later, Major Payne occupies a specific and permanent place in the cultural memory of an entire generation. Not because it conquered a weekend, because it conquered the rerun. Some movies win the opening. This one won the long game. The story that changed everything. Now we get to number 11, and this is the one I told you to wait for. Major Payne had a clean legacy for a long time, a beloved cult comedy, a signature Damon Wayans performance.
Hey, the Wayans brothers, the world-famous Wayans brothers.
The first family of comedy.
A film that had quietly become something people passed down to younger siblings, younger cousins, younger friends. It felt uncomplicated in the way that only nostalgia can make things feel uncomplicated. And then it wasn't anymore. Years after the film's release, Orlando Brown, the 7-year-old who played Tiger in his very first screen role, began making disturbing public allegations connected to the production. The claims spread widely online, were tied directly to Damon Wayans, and included specific details about incidents he claimed occurred during filming. Let me be precise about what is documented here. The claims spread, they gained attention, and they were not accompanied by corroborating evidence. They remain, to this point, unverified. Damon Wayans addressed the allegations directly when they surfaced. He denied them completely. He stated that Brown's claims were false. But what made his response notable, and what has stayed with a lot of people since, was not just the denial. It was the way he talked about Brown around the denial. He did not speak about Orlando Brown with contempt. He spoke about him with something closer to concern. He said he remembered their time on Major Payne warmly. He said he still cared about Brown. He said he believed Brown was not in a good place. When asked why he had not reached out to Brown personally, he explained that they had never had that kind of relationship, and that he genuinely did not know what kind of response reaching out might produce. There is no clean resolution to this part of the story. The allegations exist. The denial exists. The evidence to adjudicate between them does not exist publicly. What does exist is a moment in Major Payne's afterlife where the film's audience had to sit with something uncomfortable, the gap between how a movie feels in memory and what may have existed in the reality behind it. Major Payne did not lose its comedy. People still watch it. People still quote it. The character still holds up. But the film lost something else. The the luxury of being purely uncomplicated, the luxury of existing only as a warm memory, with no shadows. That is the hardest thing about number 11. There is no joke at the end of it. What you actually just learned. So here is where we land. You started this video thinking you knew Major Payne, a 90s military comedy, Damon Wayans yelling, kids getting their heads shaved, a movie that was loud and dumb and somehow endlessly rewatchable. But what you actually watched was a film built on a 40-year-old skeleton that almost starred Martin Lawrence, a character assembled from real military research that followed its actor home and made his son do push-ups. A production where the child actors blew up the studio's carefully designed psychological plan the moment they started asking for Homie the Clown. A campus that had already survived one cinematic war before this one arrived, a supporting role that almost went to Leslie Nielsen and became something stranger and better when it didn't. A grenade scene built on 2 simultaneous lies, and a legacy that is warm and complicated and still unresolved, all at the same time. Major Payne did not bark its way to cult status. It earned it through specificity, through commitment, through decades of replaying on screens that were never expecting it. The Major still holds the room, even now. If this gave you something to think about the next time you rewatch it, and you will rewatch it, drop a comment below. Tell me which fact hit you hardest. Tell me what you thought you knew that turned out to be wrong. And if there is another film from that era with a story this layered hiding underneath the surface, I want to hear about it. Until next time, fall in.